Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see you here. If there's anybody in the back who'd like to move up, feel free. Otherwise, we're good. I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at you, but I'm not. So just to get started, I'm coming in from Connecticut. I'm a college professor, and I'm just so delighted to be here today. And I thought I'd start out by finding out who some of you are and what your role is within the industry and you know what you do. Could anyone volunteer to tell me a little bit about yourself?
My name's Matthew Sullivan. I work with EBT in Washington, where I export grain terminal on the river. We export wheat, corn, soybeans through China and Asia and South America.
Specifically that region, yeah. Thank you. Someone else? Mr. Voigt. Okay, that's wonderful.
I've been a consultant for the last 12 years.
Okay.
I've been with radio for 30 years.
So you know this industry inside and out.
I've seen it.
Yep, I would think so. Thank you. Anyone else before we move on? Anyone on this side? No? Okay. How not interesting, all the women are here. I wonder what that's about. All right. Well, anyway, thank you. So again, I'm here to talk to you about why it's important to have community outreach, to have a plan, to engage with the communities around you. And we'll come back to this, we'll touch on this a little bit throughout, but one of the primary benefits is when you reach out to the areas around you, the towns, the communities around you, it's good for relationships. And it boosts relationships with all of your stakeholders, right across the board, all the way from the farmers to the producers, distributors, and not only people within the industry, but your local schools, your local businesses, government, nonprofits, charities. It builds trust, it builds transparency. So as I say throughout, having a plan for community outreach is beneficial all around. It's a win-win for everyone involved. And I'll come back to this, but I'd like to find out at some point what some of the, if you do community engagement from your company and you know what that looks like and how that's working. And I'll come back to that. So just to speak some more on the benefits of community outreach for all sectors of the grain industry, and it's a complex industry. There's a lot of players, people who do different things all along the line. It's beneficial throughout, and again, transparency. There has been more of an emphasis in recent years in being able to see processes. So transparency in the sourcing, transparency in production methods. It puts you out there as an entity saying, here's what we do. We have nothing to hide. Ask us questions. We're not, you know, we're being transparent in everything. It reinforces corporate social responsibility. In other words, it makes you a good citizen of your community. It builds goodwill all around. And I often think of goodwill as, you know, that good feeling that just, it's a deposit in the bank. Okay, every time you do something positive in your community, a deposit has been made. And so if there happens to be a challenge or a negative thing that happens, you have that to draw from. You have that bank of goodwill to draw from. And that can end up helping you in so many different circumstances along the way. So just that good feeling, and again, being a good corporate citizen, strengthens relationships, and ultimately, all the way down the chain, it helps to increase consumer demand. And that's really the ultimate goal throughout the industry, is to make the product, raise the profile, and increase consumer demand. So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, it's not one program, it's not one avenue, it's not one path. To get involved in community outreach can take a lot of different forms. Some may work for you, some may not. But I have a couple slides that talk about some of them as possibilities. And the first would be to have a newsletter. Do any of your companies have any kind of community newsletter, something that goes out to any, no? Yes? Internal, okay. Right. Well, that's still good communication, right. Yeah, a lot of companies will have internal newsletters or to their own stakeholders. It's also not a bad idea just to have something out there for people in your zip code, for people in your vicinity, just to know what you're doing. Monthly town halls. Town halls have really grown in recent years, where it's just sort of an open Q&A format. Let people come and ask questions. You can update them on trends, new things that are happening. It's just a great way to be visible in your community, to be there. You're not hiding anything. People can ask you questions. Another strategy would be localized and grassroots marketing campaigns that are customized to your community. So when I say localized and grassroots, I mean getting right in there to the individual players who, there's a bake sale at the school, there's a fundraiser at the fire department. Just getting in there and partnering with them and helping them and knowing names and shaking hands and building those relationships at a very local level can have numerous benefits. Another form of community outreach is to hold education programs or community workshops. So again, this would be like the monthly town halls. If there are people who have concerns in the community, whether it be they're concerned about air quality or noise or how does this impact my neighborhood, bring them in. Okay, say, I'm here to answer your questions. I want to be open with you. I'll tell you what I know. If I need more information to answer your question, I'll go find it. I'll come back to you. Do any of you do any of these currently? You do? The gentleman in gray, what do you do? Really? That's wonderful. What kinds of topics? Okay. But you're down at the middle school. These are...
Well, not in the middle school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's just introducing those kids.
Absolutely. Kids today don't know a lot of things. Yeah. That's right. That is wonderful. Jim, did you want to expand on that?
Finding employees is extremely difficult now, but it was a challenge 20, 30 years ago as well.
Yeah.
So we used to have programs where we would go into the high schools and talk about careers in agriculture, and we literally got back into middle schools and promote careers in agriculture, just start plant that seed to get them to think about it.
That's wonderful. And would you find them responsive and curious?
We got a lot of teachers who came to apply.
Hey, however you can get them. That's wonderful. Yeah, that can be very beneficial. Anyone else? Anyone do anything in your communities currently? Absolutely.
Chemicals should stay in their right container. Make sure your parents don't, we tend to buy bulk and put it in little, make sure your little brother and sister.
Oh, wow.
They put it in their mouth, so things like that. And
Yep.
then we also then go to the high school and community college. We've actually partnered with some wonderful universities. We partnered with Iowa
Gretchen's University, yep, yep.
partnered with University of Nebraska and K-State.
Wow. Okay.
There's room at the table. Just people understand again where you're from. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
those commercials run in partnership, and then we sponsor and
Oh my gosh, and I talk about that in here. So you're bringing fun in, you're making fun, and you're also, I love that you mentioned relevance. You speak to that audience, what their level of understanding and ways to make it engaging and stick with them. I love that. Thank you. Yes?
One other information thing we did at some locations, we had some of the rural communities, you may have a single crossing town with railroad tracks. And when we would have, known we were going to bring a big rail program, we're going to be loading on the rail, we notified, they said, there's a good chance the track's going to be blocked for the next 3 or 4 days. So they'd have to go a mile each way to find another crossing, but they could plan for that.
Right, they know about, they can create a detour or something like that. I love that. It's a heads up. And that's goodwill. And what would you do with your, I'm sorry?
Well, you know, in a small community, your office is a coffee shop.
That's right. Yeah, Jim, you mentioned that. Sometimes it's the gathering place.
We've had weddings in office buildings and some of our locations.
That's right, that's right. And that's where, and what kinds of topics with the fire departments? Just air safety?
Yeah, we, grain and traffic.
Right.
Rescue's been a big,
Right.
topic lately. We do a lot of chemical campaigns and hazardous materials. We've done stuff with the railroad.
Yep. That makes such good sense. Absolutely. There was an explosion demo, I think, yesterday that I sat in on too. So these are good educational topics, very important. Some more strategies, some more potential strategies. Emailing, you know, having there are programs like Constant Contact, having consumers and stakeholders, having them in an email list where you just get your message out periodically. Digital. And I want to make the point that so much of our communication now is digital as opposed to emails, as opposed to phone calls, and it's only getting more so. And we get so much of our news, probably the majority of our news now, via social media and digital channels. So one possible strategy would be to, you know, find out who some local social media personalities are or amplifiers, because if you can partner with people who have a larger audience than you do, you're able to get your message out just beyond your sphere. Everyone has a podcast, right? Everyone has a podcast. There's a zillion of them. So if there's a local podcaster looking for guests, become a guest on it. Talk about initiatives, talk about things that you're doing, talk about safety issues, okay? That all makes you a good corporate citizen. You're educating, you're building that goodwill. Local radio, local cable channels, okay? Wherever you have an avenue to be visible and raise the profile of your company and what you're doing, it gets back to that win-win. It's good for you, it's good for the community. Food bloggers, chefs, people who might have creative recipes that, you know, it all tracks back to your industry and what you're doing. I want to talk, we talked a little bit about the schools, and that's such an important avenue for community outreach. Schools, and not only in the small towns, but even the larger ones, they're such a big player in their community. There are parent-teacher organizations, PTAs, school boards. This is a community that's very interested in what's going on around them. So it could be a good idea to team up with them, help them with some of their events, be active in any organizations that they have. Are there future Farmers of America programs at your schools? Anyone? Okay. Are they very active? Yeah.
We're very active with the FFA, but my grandma would be rolling in her grave right now that I didn't even think about 4-H clubs.
Yeah. Yeah. The FFA 4-H. Do you have 4-H clubs? Okay. This is where You're also going to getting back to finding the young people. Get them interested. Give them activities that are fun, that are worthwhile. It helps them build on their accomplishments. It helps build their confidence. And it also creates a relationship with you and your product and your company. Are there others besides 4-H and FFA that also are active that might be important to engage with? Anybody?
Some communities will have a young farmers organization, and there's different things.
Okay. Okay, good. That might be similar to the Future Farmers.
Well, it's more people that are actively farming, but they're just getting started. They're young farmers.
Okay. Yeah, we have junior firefighters in my town. It sounds similar. It sounds similar. Okay. This is with the high schoolers? Wow. That's right, and they can't put it on the fridge with a magnet, so they don't know what to do with it. How long have you been holding those? That's wonderful. Absolutely. And safety must be a big issue, right? I'm just curious from a gender breakdown, are they mostly boys that are interested? Are you getting some girls that
When we go into our ag programs, it's a lot of girls.
Oh, good.
They all want to go into that program.
They want to go to the horses, ride the horses, yeah.
But it does transition into the sales, like you're saying. They might have an idea, and at least they see another aspect because very few are going to go into that program.
It's that age they're in, right? And I like what you said, though, even if it's not something they want to latch onto now, you planted a seed, and they know about it, and it could be something that they come back to. I like that. Thank you. So again, and you'll see that I'm emphasizing local stakeholders. Chambers of commerce are very big in Connecticut. Do they play much of a role here, your local chambers of commerce? Business and industry associations? Okay. Is it a chamber or it's called something else? Okay. Okay, because those can be, I'm sorry? Oh, I thought someone, those can be really good resources. Okay, chambers, they'll offer programs, educational sessions, networking, okay, meet and greets. And they are a wonderful opportunity for you to get your message out. And again, I come back to why do community outreach? Because it's a chance for you to explain who you are, why you do what you do, how you are to the benefit of the community around you, how you can help them. It also builds on the strength of a handshake. And Jim and I were talking on the phone a couple weeks ago that, you know, sometimes it used to be you could seal a deal with a handshake, right? And you knew that someone was good for their word. And we've gotten away from that a little bit. But the more that you can have just that face-to-face and shake someone's hand and show sincerity, and you can do that through a lot of these chamber functions. Jim?
There are a couple other organizations you might want to consider, and these get more into like the charitable events.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Junior Chamber of Commerce,
Odd Fellows?
Yes.
Oh, what is that?
It's just another organization that's typically young professionals and people, and they do a lot of charitable events.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yep. Yeah, the business professionals, you know, sometimes they'll say the 30 and under, the 40 and under. Great things to get involved with. USDA, I'm sure the USDA has programs, initiatives, resources. How involved are any of you with a local USDA office to find out what they offer? Yes. The ag extensions? Okay. Okay. Wonderful. And I want to talk for a moment about the role of data. Okay, so you can say in theory, yes, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to smile, I'm going to shake hands, I'm going to get to know people, but a lot of that can be reinforced by actually having data and evidence to back up your initiatives. Okay, and the more that you can target, know who you're talking to, know what the needs of a local community are, know what their concerns are, what the trends are, even their population growth, what's happening in a community, and data can support that. And I have another slide that talks about that, things like Nielsen data. Use any research or data available to you to strengthen and make your initiatives evidence-based and fact-based, because that strengthens credibility and it strengthens effectiveness, okay? Co-ops, local co-ops, partner with them, be active with them to help promote sustainable farming practices. Partner with local food banks. Okay, that's another great idea. And I want to step back for a minute and talk about, it's not just the grain industry, it's every industry. There's no industry that is completely static. They're constantly changing. So effective community outreach means being aware of changing trends and being able to respond to them and react to them. And tell me if you agree or disagree, but I believe in recent years, the public has become increasingly interested in where and how their grain and ultimately their food is being sourced and produced. Are you seeing that? Okay, anyone else? Looking for greater transparency. Sustainability. Growing pressure from environmental groups, policymakers, consumers to adopt sustainable grain production practices. And this all falls under the banner of environmental stewardship. Being stewards of the environment around you, making sure that air quality, water quality, that you are aware of the impact of your efforts on your local community. You're on top of it. You're there to address any concerns. More industry trends. Technology. Okay, and in talking to people, and I would know this anyway because it's any industry, technology is changing just about everything you do, all of the processes, manufacturing, production. So AI. I'm sure AI is playing a bigger role, right, in the grain industry. So being aware of that. Artificial intelligence, what role is it taking? How is it impacting what we do? Robotics on the manufacturing side are wonderful. They're helping improve productivity. They're helping streamline processes. But those are significant changes that can affect how you outreach to your community. Okay, so you don't want to have a one-size-fits-all message, and you don't want to have the same message you had 5 years ago and just push it out there. You want it to change. You want it to adapt. Recruiting. I'm sure there are years where it's easier and then years where it's more difficult to bring people in to get started and to learn and grow within the industry. So the more that you are out there, the more that you raise your public profile, the easier it is to attract new workers to the industry. And I just want to talk about that for a minute. What are you seeing on the recruiting side? And I know that you're doing work with schools, but just in the larger community, how has that been to bring people in at an entry level, move them up through your organizations? Anyone? Right.
But that doesn't mean, again, if somebody's willing to work,
Right. Yeah.
industry that's always been, whether it's 7 to 5, 8 to 5, or whatever, 7 days a week artist, everybody's there for their entire life,
Right.
to what are flexible work hours? And it can't just be flexible work hours.
Yeah.
It's not the same for everybody,
Yes. Yes.
hey, 14-hour day, but that's still a schedule.
These are such wonderful, but the work-life balance.
What can work? And if there's a guy that's got kids in junior high, that it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, his kids have a game at 4:30.
Right.
So on those days, it's his flexible scheduling.
Right.
Coming in at 6, I can be out, okay, I can look at the kids' stuff. That's flexible for you.
And so that's incumbent on the employer, right, to offer that flex. Jim, you had a comment on
I
that?
was just gonna say, anytime you get any group of or industry people together, the number one issue is finding money.
Right. And is that because oftentimes people who, even if it's in their family, well, I want to try something else. I want to leave the area.
Historically, people farm kids, okay?
Yeah.
Not as many farm kids. I mean, the ones that are there aren't staying local, they're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Our pool has shrunk considerably.
That's a challenge. Others of you seeing that as well? That's a challenge. Plus, and I have a slide on generational issues, and I think some of that is just, the young people are talking a different language. They want different things. Work-life balance. They have different expectations than maybe people who are 20 years or 30 years older. They're used to different situations and environments. So the more that you are out there in your community, the more you're seen, the more that you're heard. All of that has a domino effect. It just builds awareness which can help attract new employees. So some of the tools that might be at your disposal, and I had mentioned government resources, USDA farm programs, EPA maybe not so much, but the EPA might have some educational programs or outreach that they might do, Office of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, and just to be aware or access any grants or loans that might be available to help you specifically with your outreach efforts or your sustainability efforts. And I had mentioned using data, so let me just come back to that very briefly, that use data to boost your community engagement. And there are a lot of market research platforms. There's Nielsen data for agriculture. Are some of you familiar with CRM, customer relationship management tools? Okay, these are types of software that just help you stay in front of your consumers, help you communicate with them. Okay, so using, again, fortify your message, do the research before you go out there. Builds credibility, builds impact. I want to talk about, a lot of this is easier said than done. It's easy to say, okay, we're going to go out there, we're going to do community outreach. So it's not always without bumps in the road. Okay, so for one thing, you're trying to target your message. Well, you may find that those concerns or those needs might differ between a larger community or a smaller community. There may be a lack of consensus on what those key issues are. So some of it's really zeroing in on one particular group. What is it that they need to learn from me or to hear from me, and how do I target my message accordingly? Other challenges in community outreach: volatility in the grain market, shifts in demand. Okay, that's something that impacts every industry. More and more weather disruptions, natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding. okay? It's become a very volatile environment. And that could be something that either you want to build into your messaging, or you just need to take that into account as one of your own internal challenges. Another thing may be, okay, I've got this great message, I know who I want to give it to, I know what I want to say and do, but I don't have the time, or my organization doesn't have the time to build this program, or we have resource constraints. We don't have any money to do this, to run a community program. That could potentially be a challenge. We're in such a, I talk about difficulty differentiating messages in a crowded space. And more than ever, we are bombarded with messages from the moment we wake up until we go to bed, from every direction. Radio, TV, billboards, social media, the phone, the texts, things pinging all day long. We are absolutely bombarded with messages. So there can be a challenge to get yours to break through that clutter and to get yours to be heard and understood. So not to say that these are necessarily easy. They can be challenging, but they are worth the effort. Now what I want to do I have time? Do I have a few more minutes? Good, okay. I don't have this on a slide, but I wanted to just bring to you really quickly, if you decide that you want to create an action plan, okay, I buy in theory. How do I do it? There's an acronym, the SMART acronym, S-M-A-R-T, and it just several steps that you take to begin the process, and I'll run through them fairly quickly. And the first one is, well, the first one in the SMART is to keep your objective specific. And I've been saying, don't do an overreaching, hi, state of Missouri, we're good people. All right, have a specific targeted message. Whatever your objective is, keep it measurable. This is what I want to accomplish. So you can go back and see if that's been done. Achievable. Whatever community program you're trying to launch, make sure that it's realistic and it's doable. You don't want to take on anything that's too broad or too expansive. Relevant. Make that message relevant to the community that you're speaking to. And time-bound. Okay, have a time frame. Okay, for the next 3 months, this is the program that we're going to do. Or we're going to have a talk at the high school once a week for the next 10 weeks. Okay? And the first thing also that you want to do is to assess where you are currently. Okay, what are we already doing something with the community? What is it? Is it working? What are the strengths of what we're currently doing? What are the weaknesses? How do we build from here? The second thing is to really carefully define your objectives. You need to have those guideposts around what that program is, what your messaging is. Because if you don't know exactly what you want to say, it's making your job 10 times harder because now you don't know what goes in and what goes out. So having those specific guardrails around what your message is going to be. It could be you want the community to know that you're improving your safety initiatives, that you're doing more to protect the surrounding neighborhood's traffic, noise, air quality, whatever it might be. Your messaging might be you want community to know you're supporting one of their local programs. Okay, you're getting involved, you're helping them fundraise, you're volunteering time. It could simply be to raise awareness of who you are and what you do. Know your target audience. If you're going into schools, know who they are, know their expectations of you. So we tailor our messages accordingly, and you wouldn't present at the high school the same way you would to members of the local senior center, right? Understand who they are and what it is that they're looking for from you. What are their needs? What are their concerns? Okay? And in terms of the channels, you don't have to pick just one. It doesn't have to just be a town hall. It doesn't just have to be a workshop at the high school. It doesn't just have to be something in your local town paper. You can mix and match your channels. And sometimes that's for the benefit because people are, there's more than one touch point. People can learn about you from more than one avenue. Create your plan. Do you have a budget? What is my budget for this? What's my projected timeline to get this done? And then finally, once you've launched a community outreach program, you want to monitor it and you want to go back and evaluate it because that's how you learn whether it's effective. Did it connect? Were we informational? Did we answer questions? Ask them for feedback. Tweak it. Build on it for your next program to make it even stronger. And the last thing is go in with open minds. Encourage open dialogue. Okay, so you may be out there with your message, but it's important that you don't see it as a one-way street. Okay, I said my piece, I'm leaving. Okay, be active listeners. When people talk to you, and I teach college, and believe me, it's a challenge with some of them. They hear you, but they're not listening. Get them to actively listen to you. Or you actively listen to them, hear their concerns. Encourage them to talk to you. Encourage that open dialogue because you're going to get such a wealth of information from your community that you might not get otherwise. And sometimes that's where the real good stuff comes from. When you just let people talk. You don't cut them off, you just let them talk. And ultimately, and I'll wrap up, community outreach is a chance for you to say who you are, what your business is, why they exist, what they're doing, how they're beneficial to the larger community. And so the key takeaways, just to reiterate some of what we said before, is that it builds trust. It builds transparency. It raises your public profile. It enhances community goodwill, which may be one of the single best benefits. The engagement allows growth of those relationships. Okay? These are now, they're not just anonymous faces. These are real people and real relationships. It helps you promote your sustainability, your transparency, and finally, it's a proven way to drive growth and drive market relevance. So, any comments or questions or things that you think are key to this topic that I might not have addressed? Yes, Jim.
One of the things that we faced over the last 20, 30 years, when they were built, a lot of our facilities were totally in urban areas, or in rural areas.
Rural, okay.
Urban spread, and all of a sudden, some of our elevators are now right on the outside of town, getting new housing developments built around.
Oh, wow.
Who would not have been exposed to agriculture.
Yep, yep.
That becomes a challenge when you have a whole new set of neighbors and how you relate to them. And I guess, looking at some of the things you talked about, looking at that, like basically a total new community going up around you, maybe 30, 40 houses that weren't there.
Absolutely. And you want that to be positive because that can also spin negative depending on what those new homeowners want. So that's an opportunity to connect with them as soon as possible and let them know who you are. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for coming today. I appreciate it.